You're watching the 420 Pace Network, found at 420radio.ca and paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
This podcast is for adults only, should not be used as a meal replacement, and may contain nuts.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Noobie and the Doobie. My name is Timmy. I am the Noobie.
Mary Jane, I am the Doobie.
Today we're very excited to have on the spot Tiara Sillet from Cannabis Education Canada. Tiara, how are you doing today?
I am amazing. It is a beautiful sunny day, and I am definitely enjoying every moment of this day.
Now,
Awesome.
I'm a big fan of the sun. We can see the sun coming through your window there, but I am not a fan of the winter. Are you happy that the sun is shining, but you're inside out of the cold, or are you somebody who would prefer to actually be on a sunny day on a snow hill somewhere playing in the white powder?
Oh, I am 100% very much enjoying the heat of my condo. Yes, I love the sun, and I love the extra heat it's bringing because it has been so cold. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, the last week it was like minus 30. I was like, oh my God, how do I live in a place that hurts my face?
Right?
It's brutal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's something, I'll say it right here on the air, and if we lose listeners, so be it. But there is something a little bit messed up with people who say they love the winter. I don't know. Something seems weird about that to me.
Well, I enjoy sledding, on a crazy carpet or, GT. But I also like to go for 20 minutes, half an hour, and then go back inside and get some hot chocolate and get warm. I don't want to go and roll around and make an igloo or a snow angel.
Oh my God, I agree.
Hey,
we're so on the same page.
Who's that behind you?
This is Finnegan, my little cat.
Oh,
he loves
goodness.
to just snuggle up and be around us all the time. Yeah,
So
he's
cute.
Adorable. I'll actually tell you guys a funny story about how I got this cat. So, my wife and I used to own a cannabis vape lounge.
Okay.
And one day we were sitting there and smoking, and I was like, you know what? I think we need a lounge cat. And she's like, that's a good idea. So I told her, I was like, but you know what? I have specifics of what I'm really looking for in a cat because I've had cats before. And they were not very nice, okay? I was like, I need a really nice cat, one that acts almost like a dog, okay? He just wants to be around you. I want a cat that's not going to meow in my face all day. I want a black, fat cat.
Okay.
And so I had all of this whole list of things that I wanted. Now, a week later, the first client that had ever come into our vape lounge came in and she's like, hey, T, I know you know that we have a dog now. And, the dog and the cat keep trying to eat each other. So do you think you could take the cat? And I'm like, sure. Show me the picture. What does he look like? It ends up being a black, fat, mute cat who literally does not know how to act like a cat. I think he has an identity crisis because he is the nicest animal of all time. He does not hold a grudge, which to know if you know cats, they hold a grudge, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he wants attention all the time. He wants to be pet and snuggled. So I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Please give me this cat. This is meant to be. I totally manifested this. I'm so excited about it.
That's awesome.
I had a cat recently who's no longer with us, but I've always been a cat person. I'm not a dog person. I love cats, and I love the fact that cats aren't dogs in the sense that they really don't care or need you around, and you can go away for a couple of days, just put an extra dish, right? And they're gonna, when you come back, they'll be like, oh, there they are, as if you've never been gone.
Pretty much.
But we had gotten petless for not long, but long enough for me to be in my family, I was like, that's it. The last pets have died. Let's reset. No more pets. We're on a new stage of life.
Yeah.
But my daughter really, really wanted not just a new cat, but wanted a handicapped cat, a cat that she wanted to save a cat that nobody else was gonna maybe get.
Yeah.
So this kid is I think she literally has angelic genes, but she does no wrong, and so it was hard to say no to her. So we're like, okay, we'll do this. We'll bring a cat into the family. So she did her research, and we went down to the I don't know if it was the Humane Society officially, but that's sort of like some sort of shelter thing. And they brought this cat out of the infirmary that had like snot bubbles hanging out of its nose. And this is the thing that I find interesting about cats is everybody who was in the room wanted this cat except me. But who did that cat come up and start cuddling?
Oh my God,
with?
Of course.
That's me, right? So I've got snot on my leg, and we're like, okay, is this snot thing going to be like a thing? And they're like, well, actually, it's a chronic breathing thing. Scooter is the name. Scooter will have this for the rest. We've tried antibiotics. It would just he's never going to be able to get rid of it. It's a constant thing, and it's going to affect his eating habits and stuff like that because he can't breathe through his nose. He'll always have to breathe through his mouth. And so, we were like, well, okay, let's save this cat. Like, so this cat comes home, and I'll tell you what, for I think we had him for a year and a half, and he's like the best cat in the world, and he became my cat more than. And he would lie on my chest with his paws around my neck, which was really cute until I thought about it. I'm like, he still is a cat. Like, he's maybe just trying to get to that point where he just like, strangles me or whatever. But he never did. And I've still got snot on my walls because he would sneeze and shake his head when he would sneeze.
Oh my God. Yes, they do that.
And it was the cutest thing. And my kids, I don't even drink water bottles. Like, my son and I are the only two in the house. And if I see a water bottle that might have been mine, but maybe not, I don't drink out of it. And my kids were always like, Dad, you let Scooter literally like rub his snotty nose against your cheek while you're watching TV, but you won't drink out of our water bottle? I'm like, yes, because I love Scooter. He's so cute. So we've recently lost Scooter a little while ago, but
sorry.
But he was the best. He was the best cat in the world. But now I'm for sure petless because he was like the peak. He was like, I can't top him.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, Finn is literally my peak for sure. He is the best.
Yeah, it's nice when you can rescue an animal because like that's what we did last year. My daughter, same thing, was bugging me. She wanted a pet, and as we all know, 2021 was a little off, and I was like, you know what? We're spending all this time at home, and I mean, she's old enough that she's responsible. She can help out. Either way, we got a cat, and it was weird because COVID times, they brought the cat out and put it on the table and was like, don't let it off the table. And I'm like, don't let it off the table. And the cat's been probably in a cage in the back and just wants to go wander around. And it's hard to get a sense for an animal in that sort of period. But my God, she is adorable. She says good morning every morning and comes and cuddles. We've got a routine. She'll go in and same thing, wake up the kids. And it's like she knows. She knows. It's like, you need to get up for school. Hello.
That's the cutest thing ever. Cats are honestly the best. I love having cats. They're so like independent and simple, and like they don't require much. And like honestly, it's the best with this cat because like he gives you just the right amount of love, and like he's not super sassy, and he just kind of does his own thing. And then they sleep like the majority of the day, so it's like great. I don't gotta worry about them. Like I feel like with dogs, like a lot of them require so much attention. They're running around the house and like they need like to be outside. Yeah, they're like a kid.
Yeah,
and they're absolutely. Like cats are just super simple. It's like a nice roommate.
Did you know that house cats are the most dangerous animals in the world? Did you know that?
I did not know that, actually.
So here's the reason, and it makes perfect sense. They are the only wild animal that kills for fun. So they'll kill because they don't need. So when they kill the birds and the mice and everything that they come across, they literally will do it because they have that instinctual thing, but they know they don't need it anymore. Their food is provided for them. So they're the only wild animal that will go out there and deliberately just kill for the fun of it.
I thought it was to thank you.
That is like a very interesting fact and very accurate.
It's right. It's kind of creepy though, because you wonder, sometimes when you wake up and they're looking at you, and you're just like, wait a minute, am I going to be the plaything today?
Yeah, it's actually crazy. I saw this reel the other day. It was like talking about how like, wow, I have a wild animal in the house. And not just a wild animal, but like a carnivorous, like a wild animal.
Right?
And I'm like, geez, like the majority of cats like totally look at you as if they will kill you sometimes. Like,
Yep.
Okay,
like you're just testing my buttons, human.
Okay.
Like,
I'm gonna have to find this video. I know I have it. It's on my hard drive. Like under like, oh no you don't, or something like that. But it's a video of me sitting on the floor in the kitchen, and the cat is like staring me down, and I'm like, hello? And I'm like backing up, and I'm like, what are you doing? And the cat's like trying to go behind me,
oh
and
my
I'm like,
God.
I'm like,
so
no, like it tried to attack my leg multiple times, and we actually had to get rid of it because it attacked my ex-boyfriend's leg as he was getting in the shower, because he told him to get out of the bathroom. The cat, you know what I mean? Cats have their own. He wanted to be in the bathroom, and he said, no, get out. And I guess he kind of deserved it.
The cat ended up finishing off that ex-boyfriend. That's why I'm in the picture now.
I love it.
So as much as I could talk about cats all day, maybe I'll start a cat podcast. Cats love their catnip. You and MJ love your cannabis.
Well, cats also love cannabis too.
Do they?
Accurate, yes.
Yeah, a lot of cats will come around. They know, because cannabis, the grinder, the sound, the rituals that go with it, the cats know. And they'll come, and they'll come in the room.
Cats and dogs have an endocannabinoid system and receptors to accept cannabinoids to help them with like arthritis, with pain, anxiety. In fact, if you give your dogs who are like super anxious, like some CBD or like, treats that are infused, honestly, it helps them so much to just chill out and like take it a little bit better.
Do you, okay. I don't know if you're an expert in this field, but now I'm interested. Are there, what other do all animals have the endocannabinoid system?
Yeah, like mammals, we all have pretty much an endocannabinoid system that accepts cannabis. I mean, I definitely need to research a little bit more into all of the animals, but I do know more about like cats and dogs, because I've had a lot of people that I've crossed paths with looking for, ways to help their animals, whether they are suffering from a disease or if they're just, getting a little bit up there in age and are trying to help with their, hip pain, arthritis, or any of those things. And it also helps younger puppies and stuff with like anxiety and like the separation aspect.
So would you, so like MJ will sometimes have, like cannabis leaf in its rawest form, like on a bagel or something like that. And I'm now considering, after some more conversations with people, putting some CBD oil into my my smoothies. So when you're talking about animals, is that something like, would it be putting CBD in their food, or putting even a full leaf on top of their bowl? Like how do animals digest the plant?
Similar, like exactly like that. So if you had CBD oil, you could add it to their food. There are treats that are already infused with like CBD isolate and all of that. And there's a lot of information on how to do it based on their weight. So I believe it's like 10 milligrams per pound or 2 pounds. And with cats, you want to give them a little bit, like you want to give them double that, because they have less receptors than dogs do. So to be able to like achieve the same level of that, you want to give them like double the dose.
Huh. Now, how late or early in your cannabis journey did you figure out that it was also helpful to animals? Did you all, was that something?
Really early on, actually.
Really?
That was one of the things that was, I've always been very interested in the education aspect of cannabis, and I've been like kind of one of those nerds that likes to just learn about every aspect of the plant.
Yeah.
So that was definitely one of the things that came up, and a lot of people were talking about, and I just wanted to know a little bit more about it, so I could how I could help like my animals and animals of family members and friends that I knew that were searching for help for that, and it's helped a lot of people along the way. So it's been a great experience.
What about yourself? What brought you into understanding that cannabis was an aid to you? I'm assuming, based on the way you're talking, that cannabis probably isn't just recreational for you.
No, it is medicinal actually. However, it did come to me in a more recreational way to start. Um, I was one of those losers who needed to tell my parents like everything I did because I had like the worst conscience ever. So I told them how I was interested in trying cannabis. Now, my parents back then were a lot more traditional, I guess you could say. I grew up Muslim, so they were like, no drugs in this house and all of that. And I was like, well, it's not a drug. And so I spent 6 months researching it and created a whole PowerPoint presentation to show them. Now, my parents are not as lame as I am, so they did not watch my PowerPoint presentation. But they understood after like 6 months of me trying to tell them every fact I had ever learned about it that, okay,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
maybe there's something more to this than, what we've been told. And my parents are quite open-minded in that sense. They are open to me like providing information about different plants or, psychedelics and information that, is not so open or out there.
Yeah.
And so when I told them about all this information, they're like, okay, you know what? You can try it, but you got to do it with us. So I was like, all right, no problem. So we tried it. Now
So
they're
you and
bigger
your parents tried it?
Yep, me and my parents tried it. And now my parents are bigger potheads than I am. Let me tell you, okay? They finish way more weed than I could ever freaking finish. It's insane. Yeah, so now they love it. And that's how it started with like a recreational. But then I got into a really bad snowboard accident and I had the option. Thankfully, my doctor at the time was extremely open as well. And he was like, well, you have two options. I can either give you medicinal cannabis or you're going to be on Percocets. So I'm like, okay, well, let's try cannabis, obviously. I mean, I already like it, so might as well go that route. It's natural. I'm not going to, be addicted to anything at that point. So let's go that way. So I started with cannabis medicinally at that point and was going through like Bedrocan. And that was like my main source for a little while. And then yeah, my whole life kind of changed after doing that because in university, sorry, I just kind of kicked my camera there. But in university, I did criminology and justice and forensic psych, and I spent my entire time basically talking about cannabis, like whether it was about legalization or legislation. Every paper that I was allowed to write that was like, you get to choose the subject, my professors already knew it was going to be about cannabis. So that was kind of like my thing in university. And I had already gotten married in third year to my wife. Like we got married very young. And so when I graduated, she was like, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, well, I'd like to do something in cannabis. She's like, well, that's not specific enough. She graduated a physiotherapist, but she was like, okay, well, I'm interested in doing something with you if you want to like start something. So I was like, okay, why don't we do a vape lounge? So after I graduated, 4 months after that, we opened our vape lounge in Pickering, Ontario. And that was amazing. We had such a great experience. We turned it into a patient intake clinic and a cannabis education center where we were working with like the Durham Regional Police Services, providing cannabis to disease groups in Canada. And yeah, it was a really amazing experience. And then, we also had markets, so we eventually got rated. And now we are in an education. We have an education company called Cannabis Education Canada, where we provide international education, and we work with companies that work directly with the United Nations to provide them cannabis education and trying to give them more of an idea of what's happening in Canada, both from the legacy market and the legal markets perspective.
Wow. One of the things I learned through everything you just said there is I now know why you're not a fan of winter. I mean, snowboarding took you down initially, so I can see.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that.
100%.
So it's funny though how you described everything with like, I'm nerdy this way because I put together this PowerPoint and I studied all the information and stuff. And I always find that interesting because we live in a society now that I think there's a stigma to that as well. And it's not a knock against the wordage that you use, but we do live in a society now that refuses to want to understand anything.
That's so true.
And it's almost like, because I've been talking a lot about my intense. It doesn't take up a whole lot of time, but I spend time measuring my food out and weighing it in the mornings and getting an understanding of how much I eat, what I eat. I really kind of figure out what's the best bedtime for me. I try to maximize my health. And people sometimes roll their eyes and they're just like, oh, I don't, just put the food on the plate. I don't want to take 2 minutes to weigh it. And to me, I think that's a disservice. Is just like we should want to know what we're eating, and same with cannabis. That whole thing of like the fact that you had this passion, and that your parents, although they did not see your PowerPoint, it was that knowledge though, and that persistency, and that knowledge or that gaining of knowledge that really swayed them ultimately. It wasn't just someone stomping their feet going, I want to smoke cannabis. It was somebody who came to them with information. And I think one stigma we need to break down is that concept of studying something and wanting to know it well is a positive, not a negative.
No, I 100% agree. And that's kind of been my motivator in everything that I do. Cannabis has been my main plant that I've like learned about, educated people on, and it's been my huge passion. And now I've entered more of like a passion and understanding and for psychedelics, you know, with fungi and other different forms of plant and sacred medicines, and just the benefits of all of that. You know, it really comes down to these natural plants that we have, you know, available to us, and how we use them or how we ban them, and like the prohibition aspect of it and why it's banned. You know, there's so much when it comes to learning about a topic. So yes, I 100% agree that like getting information on something definitely is a huge factor in helping people change their minds, stereotypes, stigmas. You know, the best form and the best fight towards it is education and knowledge. And, you know, I definitely agree that some people are starting to wake up more to that idea. You know, they're starting to listen to more podcasts and find out information on different topics in different ways now that we have it so amply available to us with the internet, right? So I definitely see a shift in that, but there definitely could be a little bit more. There's definitely some people who keep a stance of a very, you know, traditional point of view and don't really want to look outside of that. Like they almost fear the knowledge that is available to them because it's not what they know or what they've learned and what they believe to be true. And sometimes it's such a hit to their ego to have believed something for so long and then realize, oh wait, maybe I was wrong. So I feel like that's another barrier to like educating themselves or being open to different topics.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially when you're dealing with something like cannabis.
Absolutely.
Like it was illegal for so many years that now that it's legalized, we're being able to do more testing, we're getting more information. So to have the thought of what I used to know is right and will always be right, especially when it comes to cannabis, you cannot have that mindset. Like maybe if it comes to growing in your own personal garden because you know what works for you and you don't want to try something new, that's fine. You're only affecting your own garden. But when it comes to educating others, you cannot, like, for example, the sativa indica. We need to squash that right away. We need to stop telling people, do you want to up a sativa upper high or do you want to indica in the couch low? Like, no, exactly. No. We need to adapt to all this new information. So 100%. It's nice to see that not only are you educating, but you're educating yourself before educating others.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the biggest factor is to be able to like, it's like practicing what you preach too, right? I mean, if you're going to be able to like provide information, you want to know a little bit more on that subject. You want to be able to have a background. And there's so many forms of education. And it's interesting because traditional education in cannabis is tough. We only got education on cannabis when it was legalized, but people were educating way before that. So to be able to say, you know, I have a degree in cannabis from a school only means so much too. There are so many forms of educating yourself and others with courses on the internet, you know, researching medical journals. There's so much background to it, going and actually experiencing it. You know, like one of the things that was extremely important to me was to go to various countries to experience cannabis culture there. We did an entire like trip through South America just to meet like head shop owners, go to expos. You know, we went to a Airbnb in Uruguay, which was like a weed museum that was also an Airbnb. It was like very interesting. Like there's so many different aspects to cannabis culture, and so many different places where you can learn from it, right? I mean, for example, Uruguay, like they legalized cannabis in 2013. So the amount of education you can get just by, from the people there, from the growers, from the, people who are extracting cannabis, like there is so many forms of education.
What did you learn? Did you learn anything specifically that you can remember going down into Uruguay or on any of those other countries where you're like, whoa, hold on a second, that's new. That wasn't part of my culture's teaching or unofficial curriculum.
Honestly, their culture is more on pushing home grow. So I found that was interesting because they have more of a passion and pushing the actual plant versus just taking it for a monetary, transaction. Where I feel like in our culture, we're very like, okay, we're going to legalize, but because we're going to tax it, we're going to make this much money off of it because this, and this. Not because like, oh, it's a plant, it makes sense, we should legalize it because like people need this plant and it's helpful. No, we had to find every possible monetary way of doing it. Uruguay was trying to cut the black market and the violence and the drug cartels and all of that. So this is one of the other things that pushed them to legalize. But then they started selling cannabis a gram for $1. Like it wasn't like a form of like breaking people's bank. It was a form of like, okay, this is how we're going to do it, but we really, really recommend you do home grow. And it was like 100 plants, I believe, that they could like have. So it was like you have access to so much of this plant and ways of doing it, and they're open to like they had the government threw a huge cannabis party where they had people from all around the world just come through, like the strain hunters were there, and like there was all sorts of like people coming in and just talking and like communicating, educating themselves. Like it was amazing. It was such a great experience. It's like the government is doing this, like they're providing cannabis education, they're providing information, they're not closed off to the possibilities that there are with cannabis. And I feel like that was something that was very eye-opening for me because we had just legalized cannabis. It was like I had gone November of 2018, so we had just legalized in Canada. And our original rollout was absolutely terrible. Oh my gosh, if you recall the original rollout of cannabis, like people were getting their cannabis so late, they were getting underweighed cannabis, there was mold in it. I mean, it was a whole thing. When I got to Uruguay, I mean, I felt like embarrassed almost. I'm like, don't talk to us about our like rollout. It's really bad. I ended up doing like this interview for CBC while I was in Colombia, talking about the situation of mold and like the OCS and like the like product that they were providing, and it was horrible. So I was like almost like, okay, wow, like these people have legalized 5 years ago, like at the time it was like 5 years. They've gotten so much together. Their outdoor grow was comparable to our hydro here. It was amazing. The terpenes were incredible. They had it down packed. The timing to like plant, the time to harvest, to dry, like they really had it down. And there were so many people in the culture and like the community that were able to do it. It wasn't just like a few people hiding in their, house in their garage trying to do it. So it was very interesting to see like that outlook on and perspective on how they saw cannabis and the benefit it had to their community and society, and like the lack of stigma. There was so much less of a stigma there, and like that was beautiful. Like we've legalized for now a couple of years, and like there's still such a huge stigma with cannabis.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, I feel like it's very eye-opening.
Not everybody here can grow, like because landlords, like you're saying, stigma. Landlords are like, no, you can't do that here, but they don't understand that there are multiple different products out there, grow boxes, like that one we see in the armoire. They're beautiful and they don't affect that there's no mold or mildew in the apartment. Like the stigma is so strong here that there is something to be said about gardening. I'm a gardener. I have a home garden, and I've killed every rose bush, every ivy, every sunflower I've ever owned. I think I even killed a cactus once. Okay.
Oh my God, like, that's hilarious. Those are hard to kill.
Right? But cannabis, there is something about knowing that is going to be helping me, that it is growing for a purpose. Just like I smoke with intention, I grow with intention. It is therapeutic. It is, so I can see if there's less stigma and they look at it more like it is a plant, it is a necessity, it is like a way of life almost, that the gardening process also would then improve your life.
Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree. And like, I actually just recently started getting into gardening. It's funny that you say that. So, I've always been like a cannabis grower, but I've never really grown or like taken care of any other plants. So I have like a whole little indoor garden I created that are just like easy to, deal with.
It's
Plants.
awesome.
Have a bunch of cacti too. So I'm like hoping that I don't kill any of them. So trying to weigh out my luck with that one.
But when I see MJ go down and open up her tent there to show, she gets so excited, and I
especially when
feel
it gets
bad.
close to harvest time. I'm like, look at the buds.
I feel so bad because I don't have that same passion. Although I really am enjoying when she shows me pictures online, like on social media, and they do like those extreme close-ups, and you can see like the trichomes and everything. It's a stunning plant. But she'll open it up and like she gets literally giddy and she has an endless smile and like her eyes glow. She's like, "Come look!" And I walk in and I'm just like I still just see weed.
Yeah, it's just weed.
And it's like, okay, I see it. And she's like, "But look at this one." And I'm like,
it's going blue.
It's like the colors and the way it's like the crystals are growing in the different trichomes. It's so beautiful. I totally feel you, MJ, man.
Yeah, I wish I could see it. Maybe as time goes on, I will. I mean, I've already come a long way in terms of my view of cannabis in the industry, but watching. And even on like when we do like some of these interviews, like it just when her and the guest on the show, just all of a sudden there's this thing of like, oh, and their eyes both light up as they start talking.
The last
talking about the plant.
We were talking about building bongs out of anything. Like you could build a bong out of anything.
Yeah, there's so many things like you could do with like fruits. Yep. I've seen like pineapple bongs. My wife and I a couple years ago, or maybe it was last year, we made a pumpkin bong. And that was awesome. For Halloween, that was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Well, on a recent episode we did, it was a Teaching Timmy segment where she taught me how to roll a joint and weed math and these various things. But one of them was how to make a bong out of a water bottle. And so she had a water bottle, a pen, and a lighter. And it just reinforced to me the word that we keep using was ingenious. Yeah. The ingenious nature of cannabis consumer. Like they'll literally like, you know what? I gotta smoke this thing. Oh, there's a water bottle and a pen. We can do something here. It's like what? Like how you guys like literally are all MacGyvers. It's pretty amazing.
Well, the cheapest way of consuming cannabis when we were super young was a pop can. And I will tell you right now, don't do it. Find something else.
It's not good. There's so many other ways. Oh my God.
Go to the supermarket and buy a single apple. It's way cheaper and it's way better. You're not getting the toxins from the metal and the ink. Oh, just don't do it.
You can do it with strawberries. You can do it with anything, man. I mean, you give a stoner or like any cannabis user that really loves it a little bit of weed and a lighter, you're good to go.
Right.
They will find a way.
They will find a way. What in your education process, what do you love teaching the most? Or maybe not so much what you love, but maybe, and it might even be what you love and what you feel is most needed right now in terms of the Canadians that you come across. So maybe it's actually two very different answers. What do you love teaching and what do you feel is really necessary right now?
Wow, when it comes to what do I love teaching, that's a hard one because I love teaching like every aspect of cannabis. Like I'm just so into it that if you can provide me any form of education on it, I will like learn it and then find a way to put it into a course because there's so much need, like whether it be about menopause in cannabis, whether it be about healthcare practitioners and how they use it to learn about it. The endocannabinoid system is so fascinating. That's such an interesting concept, and I definitely love to share that. One of the things I feel like the Canadian market needs, when it comes to the average consumer, they need to learn about the endocannabinoid system. Most people don't even know what an endocannabinoid system is.
I'm just finding out about it recently, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not something that's known. In fact, most doctors go through all of medical school without even learning once about the endocannabinoid system. And it's so important. I mean, we create cannabinoids naturally. We have a perfect lock and key. We are meant to consume cannabis. It's just been so like there's been so much propaganda and prohibition around it that we've literally gotten to a point in society where we believe that cannabis could literally be the devil's lettuce or some horrible other, perception of it. But the reality is so far from that. I mean, cannabis has been used in its many forms, whether it be through hemp or the actual cannabis plant, for thousands of years, both spiritually and like for environmental reasons. I mean, hemp alone, 1 acre of hemp is equivalent to 4 acres of trees. I mean, with the amount it absorbs in carbon dioxide, with the amount it makes in paper, I mean, it's incredible what it can do for our environment. And, up until a little while ago, farmers were actually forced to make hemp, and then it became banned. So there's a lot around why cannabis, was illegal and had such a huge propaganda around it. But yeah, I feel like they definitely need to learn about the body and how it absorbs and accepts cannabis, the different methods of consumption, because, most people just see it as like, okay, I'm going to smoke a joint. But there's topicals, there are suppositories, there are edibles, there are, vaporizers, there are there's so many ways of using cannabis. You can infuse it into like almost anything at this point. Yep. So I feel like, I mean, there's cannabis sugar, cannabis like agave syrup, like literally anything you can think of, you can infuse it with cannabis. So I feel like learning about how cannabis is used in its multiple forms as well as how it's used in the body is something that the market needs to know about.
Well, I think what I'm discovering is the endocannabinoid system it might be like you're saying, it might be the number one thing to kind of really get people to know, because I grew up in the Christian church, and I don't know what it's like. I don't know how the Muslim culture in general sees cannabis, but the church wing that I grew up through, I mean, if it ever got brought up, it was equal to cannabis or equal to cocaine and heroin, and I mean, you're pretty much on your way to hell. And if it's not talked about, which is probably the default, it's just, it was misinformation and disinformation all over the place, and it was basically said don't go near it. But I think if you truly and if you look at that stream of religion that I went through, when they continued to preach how God made us and put everything in the world for to help with that, and we've learned so much over the years about the macronutrients and that stuff I measure to get the right amount of protein and carbs, and you need so much iron and magnesium and all these things, and everybody in the Christian realm would be like, yeah, like that's healthy for me because clearly I need protein, so that I got protein. And if people, but nobody ever said that there was actually a system in place for cannabis. And probably, I would imagine, due to just flat out ignorance. I don't think anybody blocked that information, at least in the world I was in.
I think that's your ignorance. It was blocked long before they would even have been able to learn it.
Right. So then it's not them. Like my pastor wasn't not talking about it because he was withholding it. He was probably not talking about it because nobody told him.
Right. It was blocked. It was demonized for everybody.
It was blocked for multiple generations. But the first person who came and told me, looked me straight in the eye and said, we all have the endocannabinoid system. That was the first time I heard it. And I was like, okay.
They were insistent that he should be consuming cannabis in some form or another.
Yeah, that I needed
internally, like because of like we're saying the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah. And I flat out was like, nope. I can see why some people might, but not me. And the more I've been on my personal health journey,
but you had only tried smoking THC at that time, and it was a very high THC. And
not a great way to start.
It was just one strain a couple times or a different strain, but still it's a different, like you said, form of consumption.
But that's based on the pop culture system that I was in, where I only saw you know, the person smoking the joint, right?
Yeah.
And it was never for a purpose. It was other than escaping the world and having no passion or drive in life. So it was a way to escape all that. That's how it was perceived, right? So now though, as I've studied more about my personal health and I've been measuring my food and all of that, and I see the more and more people have talked about, and I've done my own looking into the endocannabinoid system and going, okay, now the question for me is, because people are like, are you going to consume again? And I'm like, I probably will, because I think I'm understanding that it might be a benefit to me to maximize and optimize my health. I'm going to live to 140. If I'm going to do that, I got to make sure everything's in play.
Babe, most likely you are deficient in cannabinoids because you don't take cannabinoids and you have the system within you.
Right. So now the question is how, and it goes down to measuring food, right? I got to find out what's the best form for me to take it in, how much to take, is there a strain? And that to me is what's going to be exciting going forward, is doing all of that work to say, okay, because we're going to try CBD in my smoothies is going to be kind of something that we'll start to do, because my joint smoking experience was not positive for multiple reasons.
And smoking's not healthy.
And
there's so many other ways of
I think
it,
naturally I would probably not ever consume it in that form again. But the more I'm learning and understanding that there's a very real possibility that it would help me reach my optimization as a human being physically, which then affects mentally, emotionally, all of that.
Right, absolutely.
I am now
right?
definitely looking for, okay, so what is the dose for me? Because that's that thing I think that also I bought into was one thing for all, right? Everybody smoked a joint. At that time, I had no idea that there were different strains, different levels of THC, different levels of everything.
Yeah.
It's just weed equals weed. It was the
It's
basic
experimental.
At one point, weed did just equal weed because you went to your buddy and you bought it. And he said, do you want the $60 bag or do you want the $50 bag? And it was like, well, let me see the difference. We didn't really know what was what, but once I think it was Mark Emery's Cannabis Culture down on in Toronto there that I went to, and it was the first time I'd actually seen an entire menu with those little cards that actually said, like, you know, this is 100% sativa. This one's, you know, this is the THC percentage. This is the strain name. This is and I was like, wait a minute. You can like specifically, like, I knew that there were strains, but the ability to fine tune and to find out what you liked and to keep a journal and to learn about all of this. That's why I'm super excited to follow Tim on your journey of the cannabis oil.
Yes,
CBD.
that's gonna be really interesting to see your optimal like potential and like what you can get to both like in all the different states of like emotional, mental, like physical, like because it affects everything. Like cannabis helps in like the various cannabinoids, they help you reach like a homeostasis. So if you're trying to get to your optimal potential, I definitely think that you're on the right path.
Well, I keep talking about that I'm on my way to optimizing, and it would be foolish to me based on what I know, and I'm a skeptic by nature. So I like talking to people like yourself and other people like I need to hear the science. I need to hear it from multiple people, like independent sources. You know, so, and I think I have a healthy skepticism because I have managed to break through, you know, I used to preach against it, and now I'm at least advocating for it. So but that's based on, you know, it's based on personal experience. I came across somebody for the first time that I knew smoked and was functioning.
Was very open about
and I was like, oh, wait a minute, it's possible to have. So that was the first thing of going, I see somebody now who's actually functioning as a human being, and because I never thought that was possible with weed. And now the more we've gone on this perception, going along this journey and knowing that, you know, people from all walks of life, you know, are, you know, in all industries are smoking it and consuming it in some way, but they were forced not to tell it. So you just assumed nobody in your community did, when really that wasn't ever necessarily the case. So I'm learning a lot, and but it is the education that is doing that. It's not just someone saying, it's not just a rebellious thing of someone saying, hey, you know, try weed. Okay. I'm moving forward because of being educated, and I think that's what's going to help the other newbies who are watching this show and listening to it.
Yeah.
To sit there, with
Yeah,
have the skepticism, but listen to the actual science.
If I would have came to you and been like, "Here, smoke this. It's fun," you probably wouldn't have smoked it.
Yeah.
Never would have.
No.
Same
No,
idea with my parents. Yeah, you had to give them like a lot of information, scientific proof, like, I mean, at the time, that like the majority of the studies and like even still, the medical hub for cannabis in the world is in Israel. So I was just researching all I
Really?
possibly could on it and having to bring them like information. Like they wanted like facts and like they didn't want to watch it, but they did need the information of it. So being able to just have it in conversation or like slip it in during dinner or like, did you know? And like, and then, little by little, they're like, oh, okay, like that's interesting. Or, oh, that's a valid fact. Okay, fair.
Was there hesitancy based on just who they were as human beings, or is that hesitancy also in the Muslim faith as it would be in the Christian faith?
Oh no, it was definitely in the Muslim faith. Like we're not, we're not supposed to be taking anything that alters your state of consciousness or your state of mind.
Right.
Basically.
That would be very connected to what I believe.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons why I don't practice anymore. I'm very much opposed to that belief. I believe that like we use a certain percentage of our brain as humans, and we have the ability to completely expand our consciousness and the amount of brain power that we use with using cannabis, various psychedelics, plant medicines, etc. And it's been proven scientifically. And just like with mushrooms alone, it's been proven how much that can change our form of thinking, our perception of the world, our emotional state. And the fact that like religions like really banned that was kind of, that was a big like no for me. Like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. And they can't answer the questions about it then. So it's like, okay, well, if you guys don't know why you believe in what you believe in, I'm not really sure I believe in this. So I'm gonna just find my own information and kind of go along that way. Like I definitely believe in spirituality and like the, ability to manifest and change your life and, use positive things. And there's definitely a lot of teachings in religions that are very useful. But there are aspects of it that make me a little hesitant to be able to follow through with that.
With your parents surpassing you in becoming bigger potheads, as you said earlier, are they still practicing Muslims? Like, is that something? Do they blend their faith and cannabis together, or are they also taken?
They try. I mean, they've definitely they've separated themselves a lot from it, from what it used to be, because they were like very devout at one point, and now that's drastically changed. Like they would still consider themselves Muslim, but they maybe just like not practicing like often or very active in the community or culture. There's still like lots of things that they won't do. Like they don't eat pork. There's just like their own belief, and like they believe that out of all the animals, there's just that may be the most unhygienic one for them. So they're just not about it in that sense, but they're open to information and like understanding. Like they can back up why they're doing what they're doing by not just saying, "Well, it's against my faith." Okay, but like why? Why is it against your faith? Like, is there a reason? Is there a logical reason as to why this is banned? So, we're human beings. We're here to experience things. So if there's bans as to why we cannot experience something, for me personally, I believe there needs to be some form of logical reason or like, and like something that makes sense behind it. Like not just because like, well, one person told me I'm not allowed to eat shrimp, so I'm never allowed to eat shrimp, and no one else is allowed to eat shrimp, and that's just the rule, and that's it. Okay, but why? Like that makes no sense. If you can come up with a reason behind it, like my parents, like, they told me like, this is the reason why I believe this. So I don't eat pork because of this, this, and this. Valid. Okay, cool. Like that's that makes sense. That's a reason that's logical for me. And, they didn't feel that way with cannabis, and that's why they consume it. And so they just kind of go with what flows for them.
Well, I think that's another issue that I think everybody's struggling with in our culture is that People are afraid to ask why.
Yes.
Sometimes it's due to, sometimes in religious circles in particular, there's a lot of pressure to don't ask questions. You know, God, the power, whatever said this, so it is.
Yeah.
Don't ask why, it is. But then there's also a societal pressure to never want to look like you don't know the answer, you know, and so people are
Very
afraid to
true.
ask why, right? And so
then they
both
may
of
not
those
know.
both of those are issues. But the why is what's taking this newbie from a place of preaching completely against it, wanting to have nothing to do with it, to wanting to now understand it and possibly include it and advocate for it. But it's because people are answering the why question. So that's
Right.
it's a huge part of this process. And so it's great, you know, with you doing it, focusing on education like that. It's so needed.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
I have a question
Yeah,
from an
absolutely.
educator to an educator, because I've heard through the grapevine that we all know CBD. CBD has its benefits,
Right.
but there is an argument that CBD alone is not as good as CBD and THC, the whole thing together. You agree?
I do.
Okay.
There's been a lot of information, and I'm still doing a lot of research. Like, I'll be the first one to tell you that I don't know every single thing about cannabis,
Yep.
and I'm consistently learning every day. So there's constantly new information coming out. However, some of the information that has come out talks about how CBD alone does not activate the endocannabinoid system, and in fact goes through the liver. Whereas when you use like CBD with at least 1 milligram of like THC, or at least, you know, a little bit of it, you're then able to activate the endocannabinoid system, and the CBD is able to better attach to the receptors, and therefore you actually get more out of the CBD versus if you were to just use CBD alone, whereas the majority of it at that point, they say, would be wasted.
That's what I thought.
So putting CBD oil alone in my smoothie.
See, and this is why I brought it up.
Yeah.
because I would like
What is
to-
so there's no health benefits at that point, or
Well,
there?
So it
goes through
depends.
the
The
liver,
CBD is the CBD a full spectrum? Like, does it have at least
I haven't even
1%
looked
of
into
other-
that yet.
We haven't picked any up yet, but what I was going to suggest to Timmy to use would be a 1-to-1 equivalent.
I agree. I definitely think a 1-to-1 would be good. Even a 2-to-1 CBD to THC could be very useful as well if you're looking for more of the benefits of CBD with less THC. A lot of people are scared of THC, but when you're using it in such a tiny, tiny dosage just to activate the endocannabinoid system, you don't get a huge high from it. There's no real issue that comes with it. It's mainly you just get to use the majority of the benefits of the CBD that you're trying to activate. So I know that there could be a little bit of a fear that, like, oh my God, am I going to be high throughout my day because I'm using it in my smoothie? No, you're not. If you're consuming it at such a low dosage, the CBD also helps to counteract the effects of THC. So when you're using CBD in a very high dosage and THC in a very, very, very low dosage, CBD actually tends to take over and doesn't allow the THC to do that much in terms of like intoxicating.
Yeah, that's
So-
actually a good thing to know, because if you're ever feeling a little too high and you have some CBD kicking around, you can take a little
Balance
bit of
it out.
that and bring yourself down a little bit.
Also, if you chew on peppercorn, if you're ever really high, you can
Yeah,
chew
that was
on-
that was one of the first things she ever told me about.
Yeah.
That was
the caryophyllene.
beta
Caryophyllene. Yes.
Yeah, I can never say these.
I
for
mean,
people. Oh my
same.
God.
I say both just to make sure.
So
Just in case.
obviously,
Good plan. I'm gonna do that.
obviously everybody responds differently. I've been learning that too, like different strain, different percentages, different balance points, all those things. But when you say, okay, so let's just throw this out there. We're not going to claim that we're like perfect experts in this, but when you throw out, say you need, you know, like 1 milligram of THC to kind of begin to activate, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
What point, where does THC, from somebody who still has some hesitancy towards THC, at what point does the THC level start to cross that line of no longer just being an activator, but being
That's the fun part, right?
It's interesting because
you gotta
that
find that
definitely
out.
changes. But for the majority of people, I would say approximately 2.5 milligrams and up is where you would start with that. You have to remember when you're even talking about CBD alone or CBD from hemp, it still has 0.2 or 0.3% depending based on Europe and Canada. We have different.
Yeah.
So it's never
It has
100%
to be
It's
pure.
never
Yeah.
100. There's always
Right.
at least like 0.2 or point like so. There's a very very minuscule amount. So they don't even technically consider it. It's it's at that point considered just hemp.
Right.
It's like 0.2 or 0.3. But if you're just trying to activate, that's why I'm saying like 1 milligram because like you're not hitting a point where it's going to affect like and give you a high. It's just enough pretty much to just activate your system.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, see, I always suggest, I'm like, well, you can take 2 drops today, see how you feel. Take
Exactly.
4 drops tomorrow,
Start
see how you
low
feel.
and go slow. That's what I would recommend with anything.
Excuse me, you might get to 10 drops and go, okay, it's a little bit too much. I feel a little, and then you go back to 8 drops and
Exactly.
8's good. Like it is personal. So,
Well, the good news in that formula, in that testing way, is I eat the same breakfast every morning. I don't ever get bored of it, but I also have I've done a lot of work into knowing what I'm eating in the morning. It gives me a good base for the day. So this sort of system works because if I stick on the same plan that I do, I have my same morning routine in terms of my exercise programs, sleep habits, and diet. It's a great way because sometimes it's so hard to go, wait, which factor affected it, right?
Right.
But if I already have this very regular routine, that's a great way to know because it's not going to be like, oh, well, I used too many blueberries as well, so maybe that threw it off. I already have a pretty structured thing, so I think that's
amazing. That's the most
great,
convenient way to experiment with it.
Okay, so maybe we should document that. Maybe that should be like a little bit of a journey adding to my thing here.
well, I think
That's a great idea. I would totally follow that.
you just started your health. He just started on the first, a health journey where he's doing
A re-health journey.
Yeah, you're reeing up on it.
I'm up and up.
Yeah. So what is it? 10,000 steps a day. Doing your yoga, eating your breakfast, like doing all these things. I'd like you to get at least 3 months, 4 months of doing just that and get your body into a rhythm. Because if you take this CBD oil now, you might attribute your reaction to working this past 20 days or whatever.
That's very accurate, yes.
Right? As to, hey, the CBD worked great, but you just worked for 20 days.
Right.
But it also helps you to get through that. I mean, just with the regeneration and stuff, when you're done working out, I mean, CBD has been proven to be so helpful on the path of like restructuring your muscles and helping you kind of get back into feeling comfortable after working out. And if you're going to be increasing your steps and increasing your amount of movement, I definitely feel like this is the most perfect time for you to start this journey.
So yeah, you could do it either.
Well, I'm on a 6-week plan where I have certain non-negotiables that I got to hit in terms of markers, and I'm trying to reset some some gains that I had made when I got lazy last year for about 7 months. So I'm trying to get back to that, so some of the gains that I did lose. So I had gains and I lost them.
I think I like gains.
No. So I'm trying to. So I'm taking 6 weeks where I've cut out, no refined sugars, no breads, no pastas. I'm on a calorie deficit, but I'm getting certain exercise levels up. All of that stuff is going on.
Right.
So I think the balance to what you guys have been saying here for me would be, okay, let me finish my 6 weeks, which I believe I can kind of, I've already seen me starting to get back to a lot of heart rate metrics and weight metrics that I wanted to be at.
Through that.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow's 3 weeks of the 6. So I'll stick to this plan for 3 more weeks, and then I will invite people in, and you will be one of the first to know. I'll invite people into my adding CBD at different doses and try to see how that helps going forward.
Well,
so
that gives us 3 weeks to research which
3 weeks to
CBD
figure out what we want to do with
to choose, because I mean there's so many differences out there.
There's a lot of information, and at some point you can message me and we can talk about different things that may work for you, because that's definitely one of the other things that I help people with, is like their dosing and the different products that are out there, and like kind of helping them pick what they need based on what their goals are. So
That's awesome. So let's take a few minutes, because we really appreciate you being on here. I mean, we enjoyed being on your podcast show as well, and we're after that we were like, oh, we definitely have to have Tiara back onto ours. You were so enjoyable to talk to, and hopefully we can meet in person and hang out at some point as well.
Absolutely.
But take a moment here to just take a few moments to focus on what it is that you do. As you started to slowly touch on that, what is your hope and your purpose for Cannabis Education Canada? What are you trying to accomplish, and what do you hope that our listeners and viewers, what would they be looking for when they're coming to look at you?
So we're all certified cannabis educators who are basically, our aim is to provide cannabis education internationally, so a consistent form of education where it's consistently growing as well, with information from around the world and in multiple languages, because that's one of the barriers that we find with other cannabis courses. They're only in English, and they're not available to people around the world who are looking for the same bits of information. So our goal is to be able to help people from the average consumer to healthcare practitioners. We have courses of all types that are going to be launching, and in multiple languages, like I said. So yes, if you're interested in really just getting a basic information on your system, on how it helps you, for people who are suffering from menopause and want to learn how that can help mitigate different symptoms and issues, then this is definitely the site for you, and we're hoping that we could help serve you very soon.
It sounds like for me, my heart really is for newbies who are where I was. So this sounds like something that's like, because I keep trying to really kind of drive this home, is like, if you're the newbie, and maybe you're not even where I'm at, but but you have kids that consume, or parents that consume, and I mean, this is the type of place, is like to be educated. Like, I'm assuming, like, it sounds like you have some very kind of bottom level basic thing of saying, here's what you need to know. Yes. To really understand the plant and what's happening.
Yeah, basic idea of terpenes, endocannabinoid system, how cannabis is not a drug. It's a plant, and it's extremely beneficial, and there are so many ways as to why it's beneficial, and we would love to teach you how.
That's so awesome. Where can they find you? We're going to have the links below for everybody who's watching and listening in podcast form and on YouTube. But take a moment now, Tiara, to kind of just point out how people can best get a hold of you.
Awesome. So you can contact me on my website, www.cannabiseducationcanada.com. There's an email available that's attached there in the Contact Us section, or you could also find us on Instagram at Cannabis Education CA. My personal one is at Tiara Sillet. If you have any questions or concerns, you can just contact me, DM me, and I'd be happy to help.
That's so awesome. Any final words, babe?
No, I got nothing.
I got nothing. It was an absolute pleasure. We went. I think we actually transitioned very nicely from cats and
to
sharing
cannabis.
our love for cats right to there, because that cannabinoid system created that perfect bridge, and realizing that hey, it's clearly within the realm of nature.
It's more than just weed.
It's more than just weed.
More than just weed. I love it.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much,
It was a
Tiara,
pleasure
for
you
joining us.
Appreciate
Yeah, it was absolute pleasure. So follow Tiara Sillet.
I just want to say I love. Oh, maybe I do have something. I love the name. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it earlier at the beginning. Tiara Sillet is like almost like this fancy stiletto, like a stiletto, like a shoe, and a tiara with like a little crown.
Yeah, you sound very fancy.
My new logo, a crown
right.
on top of a stiletto.
Yes.
Well,
I might draw that up.
I do hope that everybody will connect with you. Like I said, we've had an absolute pleasure chatting with you before, and it was no different this time. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are you looking for non-stop, continuous cannabis and psychedelic programming? If you are, then turn your browsers to 420radio.ca or paceradio.net, where you will find the 420 Pace Re-Rolled Saturday. Everything gets started at 8 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning.
Hi, I'm Timmy.
And I'm Mary Jane. He's the Noobie,
She's the Doobie, and this is the show
where we
tote
cannabis
talk.
from both sides.
Is that even possible?
Stay tuned. We'll be back after this toke.